Hi everybody, I'm Marbozir and welcome to another episode of Civilization 5 Deity Guides. So this time we are going to talk about early game aggression by the AI and how to not get killed in the first 100-120 turns. Because that's something a lot of people have problems with. It can be pretty tough to deal with when you first move up to Deity, because the AI starts so far ahead of you, and because of the AI starting so far ahead of you and already having an army on turn 0, and being able to make that army so much bigger very quickly, it will tend to be much more aggressive towards you because it will perceive you as weak. Which is true, you are weak compared to the AI, there's no way around that. You start behind by design on Deity. There's nothing you can do about it, you are literally behind on turn 0. So anyway, we are going to talk about all the factors that you should consider, what you should or shouldn't do to increase your chances. This is a small Pangea map, a quick game that I started just to use as a demonstration. So we are playing as Byzantium, which is one of the weaker civilizations, and I manually added a bunch of aggressive early game AIs, such as Rome. Rome is our neighbor. There's also Attila in this game, we got the Mongols, we got Montezuma, and we have a few others. So I was pretty much guaranteed to start with an aggressive neighbor, such as Rome. Anyway, I'm going to change the format of these guides a little bit, so they won't be as scripted as I originally planned. It's going to be a loose talk about one specific topic. So in this case, we are going to talk about early game aggression and how to defend against it, how to avoid it, because the best way is to just avoid it entirely. It's not always possible. And I will not be talking about any other topic, and that's how these guides will work from now on. So I'm not going to talk about what exactly I'm doing with my city, why I'm picking this or that policy, why I'm building this or that unit. That's not the topic of this video. We are talking specifically about early game aggression. So anyway, one of the most important things to consider in the early game is city location. So even on turn 0, you should consider your options. Sometimes it can be worth moving if you have a very open location for your capital, but there's something you can see in range that would be more defensible. So for example, if you have a mountain nearby, it's worth moving towards that mountain and positioning your city strategically. And not only is worth starting a city next to the mountain because you can get an observatory later, but that's something that doesn't really affect the early game aggression or today's topic. But there are other reasons to start a city next to the mountain, but it's also important strategically. Having a mountain protect your city, even a one-tile mountain, can make a huge difference in how easy it's going to be to defend your city. Because it's not actually easy to take an actively defended city, it's just that the AI will throw a lot of units at it. So the less space there is, the bigger the choke point is near your city, the harder it's going to be to take it. And the difference can be really huge. It's hard to appreciate just how massive the difference can be without actually seeing it in action yourself. So for example, just having a one-tile mountain to the northeast of Constantinople, for example, would make this city insanely easier to defend from this direction. Or having a one-tile lake. Having any kind of water body next to your city can make a huge difference in how defensible it is, especially a small lake on one side of the city, because AI tends to embark units to try to get through that body of water, and embarked units are very easy to kill. You can often kill an embarked unit with one shot from city bombardment, especially if you go tradition and pick up oligarchy, which increases your city bombardment damage by 50% if there's a unit garrisoned inside. If you have that, you can easily kill an embarked melee unit, an embarked land unit, any kind of unit, in one shot. And that makes it so much easier to defend your city. Anyway, another thing to consider are hills. So in this case, I started my city on the same exact tile that I started on, which happened to be a hill behind a river. So that makes quite a significant difference, because my city gets 25% defense bonus right away. It's also worth starting a city on a hill for the extra hammer, but that's a completely different topic. The defense bonus can be quite nice, and I would highly recommend starting cities on top of hills, especially if you anticipate early game aggression. So in this case, I already know that Rome is my neighbor, and Rome tends to be quite aggressive early on. Any AI that has very early game unique units, even an AI that's not strictly a warmonger, is very dangerous because AIs really like spamming a lot of unique units and they really like using their unique units. So even a civilization that's not strictly a warmonger but has very early unique units can be very dangerous in the early game. Anyway, one of the most important things when it comes to the AI is diplomacy. So diplomacy is actually one of the most important parts of Deity, simply because if you don't pay attention to your relations with other AIs, you are really going to have a bad time. It's as simple as that. So if you go to overview, we'll see that Rome already desires our lands. And this is the first warning that we will get. If the AI already desires our lands on turn 11, then the probability of that AI declaring war on us in the first 100, 150 turns is very, very high. If they don't desire our lands, it's best to try keeping it that way, so don't forward settle the AI. One of the worst things you can possibly do on Deity in the early game, especially when it comes to warmonger type AIs, is forward settling them. They will hate that. If you forward settle an AI on Deity in the first, let's say 50, 100 turns, you better be prepared for war, unless it's an extremely peaceful AI. Anyway, we will pick oligarchy. That's a pretty nice policy to have. That extra 50% ranged combat strength that you get can make a huge difference when you're defending a city. So that's one of the reasons why it's quite worth going for tradition, especially if you are worried about early game aggression. It's obviously not the only reason to go tradition, but oligarchy can be extremely helpful. That 50% makes a massive difference. So anyway, now that we know that Rome is our neighbor, and we know that they already desire our land, what can we do about that? One of the most important techs to get if you are worried about early aggression is construction, because you will not get a better early game unit for defense than a composite bowman. That's about as good as it gets. Not only that, you can start recruiting archers and then upgrade them to composite bowmen as soon as you get construction. As a general rule, if you expect early game aggression, you should go for construction as soon as possible. It's also one of the reasons why, if you are rerolling a game, and there's nothing wrong with rerolling a start on Deity, in fact I would highly recommend it, it's good to look for mining-based luxury resources and not calendar-based luxury resources. There are many reasons for that, but for the purpose of our little talk today about early game aggression, having luxuries based off mining means that you can research mining, which is also required for construction, and you don't have to waste time researching calendar, which is also a more expensive technology, and it doesn't lead to construction. So having mining-based luxuries is very good. That's something to consider. There are other reasons why mining-based luxuries are good, but that has nothing to do with early war. We got a city-state. Alright, so... Also, if you get lucky enough, you might get a technology from a ruin, which will help you get construction faster, but even if you don't, you can usually get construction quickly enough. But you will have to start recruiting archers pretty early on. Anyway, yeah, we will grab a worker. So, another thing to consider is how you expand. As I already mentioned, forward settling a Deity AI in the very early game is an extremely bad idea, because they hate when you forward settle them. They really, really do. And that's regardless of whether they desire your land or not. It's almost always a bad idea, unless you really know what you are doing. Which means that I would highly recommend not setting locations like, let's say this. That's sugar, that's a unique luxury that we don't have anywhere around here. There's some sugar here, but imagine this sugar is not here. Let's say this is the only possible source of sugar that we could get. Let's say this is a much better location than it actually is right now. Let's say this is amazing terrain, great luxuries, and things like that. Let's assume for a moment this is the best possible city location that we see on the map right now, right next to Rome and Antium. I would still recommend against settling cities like that, unless you really know what you're doing, and unless you are really prepared to defend that city. Because the AI will be almost guaranteed to attack you, especially an AI like Rome, a warmonger type AI. Even a more peaceful kind of AI might be tempted to attack you if you forward settle it aggressively, especially since once you forward settle an AI, they will ask you to stop settling cities nearby. If you tell them that you will stop settling cities near them and then settle a city anyway, they will hate your guts even more. So it's a good idea to avoid that as much as possible. Now, we already have one red modifier, one negative modifier with Rome, and your general goal in the early game is to avoid negative modifiers as much as possible. So not forward setting the AI comes down to avoiding that modifier, that negative modifier with the AI. Sometimes you can't avoid a negative modifier. In this case, we already started with they covered our lands, and there was nothing we could have done about that. They already desire our lands to begin with, right from the start of the game. But there are some other modifiers that we can use to improve our chances. So, for example, there are quite a few very easy temporary modifiers that you can get with the AI. If you initiate any kind of trade, I can't really buy that sugar because I don't have enough money. But if you initiate a trade with the AI, you will get a temporary modifier, which is we traded recently. It's not really huge, but stacking a few smaller modifiers like that can certainly make a difference. Another easy way to keep an AI off your back in the very early game, so by that I mean the first 100 turns or so, is to join a war against another AI that's not as close to you. So what do I mean? If there is another civilization close to Rome, I don't know about that just yet, but I assume there is somewhere, Rome might ask us to join a war against that civilization. So you will get a prompt from the AI telling you that this and that civilization is a problem, we want to attack them, will you join us? And that way, if you join the war, you will declare war automatically on that civilization, but the AI that's asking you will also declare war on that other civilization automatically. And that's the easiest way to get the AIs to fight each other early on, for free. You need to be very careful who you are declaring war on. But in case of Attila, for example, I don't think Attila is anywhere close to me. There are some mountains here, city states blocking the way, there's Rome. Right now, the problem with this start is that Rome is the only direct neighbor I have. On the other hand, if Rome asks me to go to war with Attila in this situation, I will almost definitely accept. Let's check where Attila's capital city is. Yeah, Attila's capital city is nowhere close to us. And speaking of exchanging embassies, that's also one thing you should generally avoid doing, because the AI is not all-knowing. The AI does not know where your city is right from the start, from turn 0. It needs to find you, and if you give it an embassy, it will immediately know where your capital city is. So that's one of the reasons why I would advise against selling embassies, especially to aggressive AIs that are your neighbors or are close to you. You don't want to let them know where your city is, because that will make them more likely to attack you. If they don't know where you are, they aren't going to attack you, because they don't know what to attack. When the AI attacks something, it usually launches an attack on a specific city. If you have a spy in a capital city, in one of the AIs, then you will sometimes get notifications from your spy that this civilization has launched a sneak attack on city X or Y or Z. So when the AI doesn't know where a single city is that belongs to you, it will not launch an attack on that city. It doesn't know where it is. So that's one good reason to not sell embassies early on. Right, what are we going to build here? Now would be a good moment to start building some archers. Let's assume for a moment that Rome is Attila. Attila is one of the civilizations that's notorious for attacking early on Deity, because it has two very early game units, and one of them is a siege unit, the battering ram, and Attila is one of the most aggressive civilizations in general. So Attila is notorious for attacking early on. Let's assume this is Attila for a moment, not Rome. this would be a good moment to start recruiting at least some archers. If you can get 3 or 4 composite bowmen in the first 100 turns, you should generally be safe. Not 100% safe, and you might not need that many units depending on your exact city location. But if you can manage to get 3 or 4 composite bowmen, you will generally be okay. It's not that easy to take an actively defended city. It can be really hard to do that. Right, we have a Pantheon. I'm just going to pick whatever, because that's not really the point of this game. We can actually pick the one extra hammer, because why not? God of Craftsmen. That's not really the optimal Pantheon in this situation, but that's not the point of this video at all. So I might continue this game until Rome actually attacks us. Now, speaking of modifiers, sometimes it does make sense to sell an embassy. If you know for a fact that Rome in this situation already knows where Constantinople is, because let's say it had a scout right next to it, it does make sense to exchange embassies, because that gives you a small positive modifier. That one modifier is very weak, and it won't really do anything on its own, but if you stack it with other modifiers, it can make a difference. So having a recent trade definitely makes sense. And another thing that you can do is get as many trades and as many trade routes with that civilization as possible, which might sound a little bit counterintuitive. I mean, why would you want to send caravans to a civilization that you think is going to attack you? Because when it attacks you, you will lose all these trade routes immediately. However, the AI does take that into account. The AI checks what it stands to lose from the war declaration. So if your caravans account for a large percentage of its current income, and while the AIs tend to get tons of money later on in the game, in the early game they aren't really that rich. If we look at Attila right now, he's at -1 gold. If we look at Rome, he's only at +3 gold. So if you send caravans to the AI that you think might declare war on you, it will be slightly less likely to do that, because it will know that it will lose that much gold per turn if it declares war on you. Same reason why selling luxuries to that AI might make sense, and while happiness is usually not really a problem for the AI does value luxuries. So if you sell luxuries, send trade routes, and get as many trades as possible with the AI that you think might attack you, it will be less likely to do that. It's not a guarantee, it's never really a guarantee, but it can really make a significant difference. It can be the difference between that civilization declaring war on you and leaving you alone, then attacking someone else. The biggest problem is when you are the only neighbor that civilization has. So let's imagine a reverse situation. We are right here, we are Constantinople here, and this city is Rome, the AI, or maybe even Attila's court. If this was Attila and we started here, Attila would be pretty much guaranteed to attack us, because we would be the only target he has. He wouldn't have any other options. And Attila is one leader that loves to attack people. So then it wouldn't make a lot of sense to trade with him. It would actually be a bad idea to trade with him, because he would almost definitely attack us. Then we would just lose all these trades. It would be a better idea to just start preparing for war immediately. Right, we have a barbarian incoming. So yeah, it would be a much better idea to just start preparing for war immediately, because there will be war. It will be pretty much unavoidable. However, that kind of situation doesn't happen very often. This guy is pretty annoying. So, back to Rome. We can't really sell anything just yet, but once we improve the silk, we'll be able to sell silk to Rome. And it should be possible to keep Rome off our backs, especially if we can get him to fight Attila, which should be quite doable. He doesn't have a direct border with Attila just yet, but if Attila starts a city close to Rome, then they will either ask you to go to war with the other, so there's a good chance Rome will ask me to go to war with Attila at some point, and it would definitely make sense to accept. Right, we will pick up Landed Elite. And we still need to kill that guy. Also, this is actually a pretty decent start, because we are quite well protected by terrain. There are a lot of mountains to the east, so we don't really have to worry about anyone attacking Constantinople from the south, southeast and east, because even though there's enough space here for a unit to move through, it will be pretty much impossible for a large army to move through here. And a choke point like this is extremely easy to defend. It's pretty much impossible for the AI to take a city through a choke point like this, unless you really mess it up. If it's an actively defended city, if you're not hugely behind in techs, then it's almost impossible to take a city through a choke point like this. Right, so far we got 2 archers, which means we'll be able to upgrade them to composite bowmen once we get construction. And here's the problem with calendar-based resources, because I will have to research calendar to be able to get my luxury. If I had mining-based luxuries, I would save 10 turns, and I would be able to get construction 10 turns faster. I can't really ignore calendar, because getting luxuries is just too important. I want to be able to start my second city without hooking up a luxury. I'm missing out on trades. So you really want to hook up your luxuries. I don't think that requires an explanation, because that's really one of the basics. And right, so our city is at 3 population. We could get another archer. We could get a caravan to send to Rome. This is a pretty good idea at this point, because that will make Rome a little bit less likely to attack us. Again, none of these things on their own will prevent the AI from really attacking you, because it's a pretty small factor. But if you stack all these things together, it can make a difference. So you had the recent trade with the AI, you have embassy, maybe you have a common enemy. That's a pretty big one. So even if Rome doesn't ask us to declare war on Attila, if we see Rome declaring war on Attila, just kind of on their own, it's worth considering attacking that AI or declaring war on that AI yourself, because that will give you a common enemy modifier. And having a common enemy is one of the largest diplomatic modifiers that you can get with little effort. It's huge. If you have a common enemy with that AI, so in this case with Rome, they will be much less likely to attack you. It's only a temporary modifier, it doesn't last forever, but it's huge. It's definitely worth getting that if you are worried. So if I'm worried about Rome attacking me in this game, I will definitely consider attacking or declaring war on whoever Rome declares war on, if it's not someone I care to have very good diplomatic relations with. And here's the thing about civs like, let's say, Attila or the Mongols. They are usually disliked, so especially Mongols. Any civ that tends to attack city-states a lot, so the Mongols are notorious for doing that. Or any civ that tends to be very deceptive and very aggressive tends to be disliked, or it's easier to make it disliked by other civs. Which means you don't necessarily want to be too friendly with it. Taking the Mongols as an example, it usually isn't a very good idea to get too friendly with the Mongols, because the Mongols will usually be hated by other civilizations. It's better to just either declare war on the Mongols when someone else is fighting them, or denounce them. Denunciations can be a pretty nice tool to get the AIs to like you, or at least to stack some positive modifiers, because if you denounce any leader in the game, the other civilizations might also denounce that leader if they like you more than they like them. So even if the two civilizations are not strictly hating each other, they are not at war with each other, they don't really hate each other that much, but let's say Rome likes me more than it likes Attila, and I denounce Attila, I will get a bonus with Rome, because Rome likes me more than it likes Attila. But you have to be careful. If you're not 100% sure, or at least 99% sure, that the AI likes you more than it likes the other AI that you're about to denounce, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. If I denounce Attila right now, and it turns out Rome likes Attila more than it likes me, Rome might then denounce me in return, and that would be terrible. Especially this early on. So, right, we are about to finish that caravan. Also, I'm not playing this very optimally, because this is mostly to talk about early game aggression, not to play a highly optimized game on Deity. So a lot of my moves with this city probably aren't very good. I'm just saying so that you know. We will finish that caravan and then start a city. So as I already mentioned, you definitely don't want to forward settle an AI, and in this case I would absolutely not forward settle Rome unless there was a city that would give me some kind of massive advantage. So for example, Lake Victoria or something like that. If there was a game-changing city location, then I would probably do it. But I would know that I'll pretty much have to defend it. So if you decide to settle a location like this, right at Rome's doorstep, you pretty much have to start preparing defenses, because it will get attacked. You're pretty much guaranteed. Especially when Rome desires our lands. And they do desire our lands. So the Mongols are nowhere close to us. That's interesting. And as you saw already, Rome was already attacking Vatican City. They annexed Vatican City. And when the AI is actually actively attacking a city-state, the other AIs, quite a few other AIs, will dislike him. It kind of depends on specific personalities. Some AIs dislike aggression towards city-states more than the others. It's kind of something that you have to know. But there's a site, well, there are many sites and resources where you can check flavors, but there's a site called civdata.com where you can check specific flavors and personalities of each AI, assuming you're not playing with random personalities. But I'm not playing with random personalities in this specific game. And we captured a worker. Now, I would normally consider returning a worker to a city-state, because 45 influence is quite a lot, but in this case we'll take it. Having a worker early on can give you a really nice boost. So, there's Greece. This is not the kind of start that I wanted, but yeah. So, here's an example. This is the kind of event that you will get at least several times early on, depending on the start. Unless you get a full game of super friendly civilizations, but even then. Knowing that Alexander is nowhere close to me makes me consider accepting this offer, but since it's coming from the Mongols specifically, and Mongols usually aren't very well liked, I'll probably decline. But if this was Rome asking me to attack anyone other than Rome, I would pretty much accept every single time, because that will give us a common enemy, diplomatic modifier, and that's huge. Having a common enemy is one of the easiest ways to get that AI to like you. Just something to remember. Alright, we got this worker for free, that's nice. So what else can we talk about? Accept embassy, yep. Yeah, Alexander is on the other side of the world. We probably don't have enough money to bribe anyone just yet, but it's usually worth bribing AIs to start wars, because that's the other way to get the AIs to fight each other. If you go into diplomacy, like so, you can ask the AI to declare war on, let's say, Attila. Ask him what he would want for this. Sometimes this is kind of bugged, and if you put something on the table, like 3 gold per turn, sometimes the AI will accept anyway, even though they were saying there's no possible way to make this deal. So it's worth putting something on the table, just don't go too crazy in case they accept. Another way to try getting the AIs to fight each other is to go to war together. So you can ask them yourself. In this case, I can ask Rome to declare war against Attila, for example. Just keep in mind that if he accepts this, we will be at war with Attila. In this case, he will not accept it. I could ask him to declare war against the Mongols, for example. He also declined. It's usually worth checking. He might change his mind a little bit later. And once we finish that settler, we should probably get at least one more archer. We also need to be careful to have enough gold to actually upgrade these archers to composite bowmen. With 3 composite bowmen, we should be safe. And I will return this worker. 2 workers is enough, and we can get some decent influence with Sidon. We have 106. Now, this is a militaristic city-state, which means we will get units from it. And you can actually check what specific unit a militaristic city is specialized in. In this case, that's Chris Swordsman, that's the Indonesian unique unit. So if we rush iron working, we would be able to get the Indonesian unique unit. It's something that's worth considering in this case, but even getting a unit or 2 from a militaristic city-state early on can help you immensely against AI aggression. It's obviously not something you can count on, because obviously you will not have a militaristic city-state right next to you in every single game. That's just not going to happen. You won't even have it once in 4 or 5 games. It's something that happens fairly rarely. But if you do have a militaristic city-state, and if you do have a city-state quest that you can use to get allied with it, that's amazing. Not only that, if you have a city-state, let's say Bucharest, if I saw a quest, there is actually a quest, this one. If you see a quest from a city-state that's right next to the AI, that would help you get allied with that city-state, it's absolutely worth doing it. Because a city-state can be a great distraction. Let's say Rome declares war on us. If we are allied with Bucharest, Bucharest will start attacking Rome actively and harassing Antium. Not only that, Rome might actually go for that city-state and make it their priority for the war. And as long as the city is fine and it doesn't fall, you are generally fine. Even if the city-state does fall, it gives you a little bit of breather. It gives you some more time to prepare. And it makes the AI split its armies. We got a promotion for the archer. So, what else can we talk about when it comes to early aggression? So, just to sum things up. The few things to consider are positive and negative modifiers with the AI, anything green and red. You can find the lists of all possible diplomatic modifiers if you Google for it. I don't think I'm going to link any specific resource. These modifiers are listed in many places. I'm sure you can find them. So it's worth to know what modifiers exist in the game. I assume that if you are moving on to Deity, you already kind of know what are the positive and negative modifiers that are possible, but it's worth looking through that list to remember about some of them. It's pretty easy to forget about some of them, especially the temporary ones. The recent trade, the common enemy, is a pretty obvious one. So that's one thing, positive and negative modifiers. Do not break your word. One of the worst things you can possibly do is break your word, which in the early game is mostly settling close to the AI. So if the AI asks you to not settle cities next to them, do not settle cities next to them. They will hate you if you break your word. They will already hate you if you forward settle them, even if you promise that you won't after that. But if you ignore their request, they will hate you even more. They will hate your guts. So do not do that unless you are ready for war. You have to be ready for war if you do it, more or less. So, next, you got trade deals and caravans. Sending a caravan to the AI, getting as many active trades as possible is a good thing, because the AI will hesitate before it breaks all of that stuff. It's not a guarantee, it does not guarantee that it will not attack you, but if you are the only or the biggest trading partner for that AI, it will be less likely to attack you. You always want to have some kind of military. The AI will be more hesitant to attack you if you have some kind of army to defend yourself with, even if that army is not amazing, because it will not be amazing compared to them. But if you have nothing, you are just asking for it. One of the worst things you can possibly do is to just have nothing. Do not ever let that kind of situation happen. You always need to have some kind of defenses. Yes, it's possible to play with no defenses at all. It's certainly doable. You can still prevent the AIs from attacking you while having no army, but I would consider that to be a little bit more advanced, and you really have to be 100% sure you know what you are doing if you aren't maintaining any active army at all. You always want to have several, and oh, this is perfect. So when the AI is preparing to attack someone, it will be fairly obvious in the sense that the AI always starts moving an army towards its target. So in this case, we can clearly see multiple AI units moving towards us. Now, he did not declare war yet, but he will almost definitely declare war on us in the next few turns. So what can we do about that? We can still try to check our diplomatic options. So if we can get another AI to declare war on Rome, for example, in this case, we should probably try to get some gold per turn. This is probably not going to be enough gold. At least I'm pretty sure it's not going to be enough gold to really bribe anyone. But we can certainly try. It won't hurt. If we can get someone to declare war, then it can be a big enough distraction for Rome to change their mind and go for someone else instead. Go defend themselves, go do whatever. They will change their mind. We can also try to ask Rome itself to declare war on someone. This is a pretty bad example because I didn't improve my sugar early enough. If I had some luxuries, it would be much easier to bribe him. Even if I had one copy of a luxury, it's worth giving away your last copy if it's going to prevent a war declaration on you. Yeah, I can't really bribe them with anything. We don't have enough gold and we don't have enough luxuries. That goes back to having mining-based luxuries. It's just so important. Calendar is really a technology that's kind of out of the way. You really don't need calendar right at the start. It's certainly not one of the first technologies that you should research. The only real reason to research calendar right at the start is for the luxury. There's no other reason to research it in the first 50 turns or so. So I highly recommend going for mining-based luxuries. So, since we see Rome is pretty much guaranteed to attack us at this point, we can prepare some defenses. So in this case, we will get one more archer, we will get construction in 2 turns. So this is a pretty decent timing attack from Rome, right before we get our composite bowmen. But it shouldn't be too hard to defend. What we are going to do is make them attack us through the river. And we'll use city bombardment. I'll probably throw away the warrior, because the warrior is a super squishy unit. There's really not a lot of room around here to keep him safe. But we'll keep him on a hill behind the river. So that gives us 2 different defensive modifiers. One on top of a hill for defending on top of a hill, one for defending on the other side of the river, and we can also fortify him all at the same time. Is this a hill? Yes, that's a hill. So we can keep one archer here, like so. And we'll get one more archer in Constantinople itself. As for that worker, he should probably improve something on this side. If I can finish improving that silk, I could try to give... Yep, here's the war declaration, so that's convenient because we can do some actual fighting. Now this is a fairly easy location to defend because he can only really attack from the north. He can't attack us directly from the east, from the west, from any other direction. It's not the most defensible city I've ever seen. I've certainly seen better, but it's not terrible. So, what you need to do is consider which units are the biggest threats. So, as you no doubt know, you need a melee unit to capture a city. So, if the AI has very few melee units in the area, it makes sense to focus on these melee units. Let's say he had tons of ballistas and only 1 or 2 melee units. Then you probably want to focus on that melee unit. If he only has 1 or 2 ballistas but a ton of melee units, it makes more sense to focus on that ballista. Another thing that you can sometimes use to cheese a little bit is use worker bait. AI loves capturing workers. In this case, I don't really think I want them to capture my worker, because I don't really have a lot of workers. We will start upgrading our archers, because that's pretty important. And we will build city walls. Now, one thing that's also worth keeping in mind is that the early game wars usually don't last very long. If you can defend yourself for a few turns at least, the AI will usually start talking about a peace treaty. If you can kill at least a few units, that will usually represent a significant percentage of the AI's army. So even if your city is still under siege after a bunch of turns, the AI might start talking about peace. Just because you killed a bunch of its units, and its army strength is suddenly 30% lower, for example. The AI is not very good at evaluating whether it can actually take a city or not. It looks at its army strength, which is why killing units is so damn important, even a few of them. Right, that's our new cities, so we'll start from a library. As I said, I'm not playing this very optimally, but that's not really the point of this episode at all. Now, the one mistake a lot of people sometimes make is freaking out because the AI is sending a carpet of doom towards you. You need to keep your cool. It's not that easy to take an actively defended city. especially if it's a city that can only be attacked from 1 or 2 tiles. It really isn't. So if you keep your cool and focus on killing the units that are attacking you, you can do just fine. Now in this case specifically, there is only one ballista that can attack Constantinople. I would consider taking that ballista down. We can't do it in 1 turn, but we can probably do it in 2 turns. Now, I want to get this warrior out of the way, so I'm probably going to sacrifice him. Do something like this, which is fine. Then we can also attack that guy. I could probably get away with ignoring that spearman, but we need to do some damage. Now they are down to almost no health at all, which means they shouldn't be a huge threat. They will not be able to take the city while only having so little health. As long as we can take the ballista down, our city will be safe. Okay, so now we can focus on ballista, take the ballista down, and now he's only left with this one and with the warrior. We can't attack the warrior from back here, unfortunately. This is actually not a great defensible position. If this mountain tile wasn't here, I would be able to use my composite bowman a little bit more efficiently. But I think you can see what I mean. The biggest mistake you can make when the AI attacks you in the early game is just freaking out. Oh, he's sending 10, 15 units towards me. These units might not be as dangerous as you think. So in this case, for example, if we can take down all these warriors, we'll be fine. Sometimes it's better to actually leave a unit low on health, because a warrior with 10 health really can't do a whole lot. And in this case, it's better to leave this warrior alive, because there's a good chance the Legion will make its move first, and it won't be able to move to this tile because it's already occupied by a warrior, which means the Legion will not be able to attack Constantinople on its next turn. But if I kill that warrior, the Legion will almost definitely attack Constantinople because the tile will be free and open to move to. Alright, we do have an archer incoming. That's the scout with the ignore terrain penalty for movement, ignore terrain cost. Alright, and now, what I mentioned before, we already killed a few units, so if we start talking with Rome, there's a good chance, yep, he will already negotiate. So as long as the AI is willing to talk with you, you can get white peace for 10 turns. So we can already end this war right now. This is something that you pretty much have to do if you get attacked very early on, because a Carpet of Doom is definitely a thing on Deity. You can't take down the entire Carpet of Doom. The AI will just keep throwing units at you constantly. And it's pretty tough to make them run out of steam. And you need to go back to, you know, developing your civ, starting cities, improving your tiles. So we can negotiate, and peace out. And we are fine. I could have managed my units a little bit better, but this isn't really a showcase of the most optimal unit micromanagement of all times. It's just to show the general principle. This was a pretty early war declaration from the AI, around turn 60. But if you have an aggressive neighbor, and if he desires your land right from the start, it's usually to be expected. But now, if we check our modifiers, he doesn't desire our lands anymore. We do not have a single red negative modifier, which means it should be significantly easier to stay at peace with Rome now. Especially if we can convince Rome to attack Attila. Did we hook up the... No, we need to finish the plantation. This is a pretty slow start because, yeah, we didn't play very well, we got slowed down by that war declaration, but the main purpose of this video was to discuss early game aggression from the AI. So that's exactly what we did. We have some iron near our second city, that's not too bad. As for research, now that we have construction, we should definitely go for philosophy. But it can be worth picking up sailing for a second caravan. In fact, I would probably consider picking up sailing. Because the one thing about caravans on Deity, as you might or might not know, caravans are worth tons of science. You will get so much science from trade routes. It's worth getting that extra trade route early on, just for the extra science, not necessarily for the gold. Obviously the gold is nice too, but that's not the topic. And now that we have a pretty decent defense force of 3 composite bowmen, 4 composite bowmen, we don't have to worry too much about this. And now imagine how much smoother this would be if we didn't have to waste time to research calendar at the start. These extra turns to research calendar make such a huge difference. All these timings were so close. If we had even 3 or 4 extra turns to get construction slightly faster, I would have already had composite bowmen waiting in Constantinople for Rome. And then city defense would be even easier than it was. It's just so important to get the composite bowmen out early. In any case, this video is getting extremely long already, so I'm going to finish it here. I probably missed a few things or tips that I could have covered, but the way I'm going to handle this guys from now on is that we'll pick a topic and discuss that topic in a video. It will be slightly less scripted than I originally planned, which means I might miss something here and there. If I do miss something major, I'll always add it in the comments or maybe do another episode to talk about other factors. In any case, this is the format that I will likely use for these guys from now on. Feel free to post any feedback you have in the comments below. If you have any questions or things that you want me to talk about, then feel free to ask them below. If there's anything specific that you want me to do an episode on, then also feel free to post a comment. There are quite a lot of topics to cover, obviously. I already have a list of like 10 to 15 topics. In any case, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you find it helpful, and I'll see you next time.